going to get started with tonight's festivities. My name is Roger Hertel. I'm very proud to be here. I was asked by some of the members of the board to MC this event, and I consider that quite an honor to be asked. So very happy to be here tonight to get us underway with this. A couple of notes that I was handed here last minute. Again, just a reminder, please, about your cell phones. You can take care of those right now. That would be great. And again, everything is being recorded. And if there are people that you know who couldn't be here tonight, again, tomorrow at some point, if you go to YouTube, MCTV, the entire proceeding will be there. So we'd love to have you take a look back at that. So tonight we are here because of sports. All of us have a story to tell. All of us, some way, shape, or form, as an athlete ourselves, or a coach, or a mom, or a dad, or whatever. Sports has brought us all here, and that's an awesome thing, and an awesome thing to celebrate. Like many of you, just heard a bunch of stories here a few minutes ago. It was really awesome. A lot of names brought up, a lot of faces that maybe we haven't thought about for a while. You know, for all of us, we have our own story. For me, my story was, like a lot of you, just an athlete at Kish High School, playing for coaches like Buck Ryden and Dick Weber, names that I'm sure many of you remember from the past. Being a local athlete on some teams, and then coming back to the area, and luckily for me, I get asked by a gentleman, Dave Semler, at the back table, would you like to be on the radio with us? We're starting a radio station, and that turned into 11 years on Chicks 105 as the sports director, which turned out to be a great party time for me personally. That was so much fun. And finding out that the Lewistown girls were being represented here tonight, that for me is one of the great memories of all of that time period. That night that the Lewistown girls won their first state championship, and they were both great nights, but I'll never forget that first night because that was the biggest party I think Mifflin County's ever seen that I'm aware of. I don't remember anything like that first night. I do remember game's over and we're coming back, and everybody says, hey, there's going to be a big parade. It's going to start at Red's Diner. We think you guys should broadcast the parade. I said, really? We hadn't really planned on that. Yeah, they want you to broadcast the parade. Let everybody know where the parade is. So myself, Joel Diamond, who was our driver. Where's Joel? Joel's back there. And the president of our club, Mr. John Zimmerman, is in the back seat. They were with me during the broadcast. And so the next problem was, how are we going to get on the air? And so luckily John had a cell phone, which back in those days was not, you know, cellular service was not everywhere. And John had a cell phone, and back then for the young people here, this wasn't an unlimited cell plan. This was, if you called somebody, it was cash, it was money, and you tried to make it quick. So John gives us his cell phone, and we're thinking, at the most this is going to be, you know, maybe a half hour. So we start, and we're leading the parade, and the next thing I know, it's an hour, and it's 2 hours, and it's 3+ hours. And I forget what it actually was, but it was the funnest time, one of the funnest times of my life. And I'm sure for the Lewistown girls that are here tonight, it was one of the funnest times of their lives too. Going up and down the streets of Lewistown, and it didn't matter if you were from Lewistown, Penn Highlands, Chief Logan, Indian Valley, Belleville Mennonite, you were there. You were on the streets of Lewistown just celebrating, watching adults with tears running down their cheeks and pure joy of what happened that night. The reason I'm telling you this is because I'm going to introduce John to come up here. So John is in the back seat, and they're feeding me information, and I'm trying to keep going for 3+ hours talking about this parade and these girls. Anyhow, by the time we finish, I think, I'm not exactly sure, but I think the final cell phone bill came in at 3 hours and 43 minutes. I forget what the dollar figure was.
178.
Okay. Did we ever pay you for that? I didn't think so. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the president of the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame, please welcome John Zimmerman.
Oh, what memories, holy mackerel. And he just stole all my stuff. Get in the car, and $178 and all that. But the key thing is, it's finally happened. we've been talking about a Hall of Fame for 30, 40 years, honest to God. And when we had the Clarion, I had the thought, well, this would be a good place to have it for home base. And we had 394 pictures in that place of sporting events and figures and things. And I thought that was pretty cool. But if we're lacking anything, it is a permanent location. It'd be nice to put plaques of all the inductees on a wall of fame someplace, you know, like other places have it. So, you know, if you can't dream it, you can't do it. So that's the type of thing we need to think about for the future. But my God, I'm so thrilled that here we are. What a great venue, too. Where's John P? Is he here? Thank you for letting us use this. This is fantastic. I have some notes here because I'll forget. I can't remember my name sometimes. But this is really awesome for me personally. I'm going to get into personal stories here. Being at Birch Hill. I mean, this used to be, I worked at Standard Steel, and we had meetings up here daily, you know, all the freaking time. And Candy's dad was a contractor, and he was doing work on the old Birch Hill and was fixing it up, and we had decided that's where our wedding reception was going to be. And Candy didn't like the color of the stairs going up into the building. And her dad said, "We don't like them, paint them." So she's out here 2 days before the wedding, painting the steps. So we go way back with this venue, believe me, a long time ago. I'll just say one thing, it hasn't been comfortable picking only 5 or 6 people out of dozens and dozens that are true candidates and should be in here all at once. But you can't do that. You know, we've been advised by other chapters, if you have too many, you won't give proper recognition to each one. Everything will just sort of jumble out. And also, it'll take too damn long. So we're going to do, 5, 6. When they had Alex, who, that's another story for us. I don't know if we're going to tell that or not, but it's a story that I'll tell it now. Dick Weber thought that Alex should be in the State Hall of Fame. And you couldn't do that without being in a local chapter. So Dick Weber established the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame back in, what the year would that have been? Don't have a clue. Don't know. And then Alex is in the State Hall of Fame. So he was the first one into Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame, so he's coming in with us tonight. But it's awkward not to get more. There are dozens of people that should be in, and a couple in this room. But we'll get to you all. But that's been awful. I haven't liked that part of it very much. But I've been around, I'm going to look at my notes here for a second. I've been around the sports scene in Mifflin County a long, long time. And I remember looking at Bake there. I was working in New Orleans, and Super Bowl III, that's where we watched it. And I was so proud and happy to go into work and say, I know number 51 of the New York Jets. I'm still saying that, Bake. I know number 51. But how cool was that? I mean, that was one of my first remembrances of you. I used to watch Cindy playing racquetball, and I thought, well, she would kick my butt. Was she good? And Junior was there making her better. And what a team, what a team. And that was neat stuff. Who else? Who was in the next one here? Dave Bradley. I used to play basketball. And Jim Foster's here. He played basketball with Dave when we were in high school. And Dave went on to an unbelievable football career. And after that, he worked at Standard Steel. And I had the privilege of working with him. And he was a fantastic, fantastic supervisor. He made me look good. So lots of memories and things about Dave and the family. We'll hear more from Jim in a little bit. Fran Fisher, I've told this story before, but I have to tell it again. Fran used to do our high school games, and Rothrock State Championship game. Some of the things some of the great quotes. I was a speaker at a couple banquets when I was a student athlete, and after one of them, he said, "John, you're as good a student athlete speaker as I've ever heard." And I felt, oh my God, how good did that feel, right? And years later, when I got to know him, I told him how good I felt. He said, "Oh, I told that to everybody." Burst my bubble pretty good. Tim Thompson, I didn't know well. I knew him socially in the church. What a great gentleman, and what an unbelievable baseball player and scout. He was the real deal. And we'll learn more about him tonight. But wow, big time. And I told you about Alex, and while he's going in, and Lewistown girls basketball, that's as good as it gets. And my daughter Leah, played against them, so I got to see this all the time. And then Roger told the story about coming back, and I was stat man too on the radio. I was the best stat man person ever. I had assists, rebounds, and people didn't even know what the hell they were. But we had a good time. And then we left Tony's. Joel had a gear shift in one hand and a beer in the other. Off we went for $178 later it was. Oh my God. And Roger, thank you, man, we're going to stay near the mic. Thank you for helping us here. And I'll tell you how far back we go. His dad and I were area sales managers for Marlette Homes. You were just this big. Now you're this big. But he's lost, what, 75 pounds? How good is that? How fantastic is that? But we go way back, and then he gave me the opportunity to coach with him for a few years, and you know, if I had to pick an experience in life that was as good as any, it would be coaching. And I almost, there are times you think, what would you have done different? Maybe coach. That was as good as it gets. Interacting with young adults and helping them get better, and helping them to see how life should be and could be, and doing as good as you can do. That was a tremendous, fantastic experience. Where's Steve Jones? He's here somewhere. But I can't. Okay. There you are. How fortunate are we to have him? Oh my God, he probably got home at 2:30 this morning, finishing that game, and he's over here helping us out. It doesn't get any better than that either. Aren't we very fortunate? Thank you, Steve, so much. And Roger will do a proper job of introduction, but thank you, Roger. Thank you for the whole board of the Hall of Fame. I'm looking at a couple, I'm not going to name names, but my God, people really worked hard to put this together and bring this together. I thought, we'll never get it done. We're getting it done. And thank you so much, everybody. Okay, I guess that's it. So let's enjoy the evening, and we are Mifflin County. Thank you.
Thanks, John. And moving forward, I did neglect to do one thing here real quick. We did want to make sure that we recognize the media that are in attendance here with us today. So there are guests tonight, and again, without the media, yeah, that's a quiet game last night without Steve Jones, right? I mean, how else do you want to listen to a Penn State game? But our local media that are in attendance here, if you just please stand and be recognized when I call your name. Representing the Lewistown Sentinel, William Whistler is here today. Representing WKVA Radio, their sports commentator Adam Sheets is here today. Babe Ruth Baseball, only one name. 51 years he's been doing this, people. Ray Wild is here with us this evening. Also, we wanted to invite as a special guest tonight, I'm sure you all heard about the 15-year-old All-Star team that represented us all the way down in Texas at the Babe Ruth World Series. They brought home the silver medal in the country for 15-year-old All-Stars. Their manager is here with us tonight, Bill Corbin. Okay, so moving forward, time to introduce our guest speaker, and I'm going to keep this real short. I read a bunch of stuff about Steve, but what I like the best is what I read here in your little program. It says, people consider work to be what they do for a living. For Steve Jones, the term work doesn't apply. He calls it fun, and he makes it fun. That had to be a hell of a lot of fun last night, ladies and gentlemen, right? Please welcome the voice of Penn State, Mr. Steve Jones.
Before we get started, I just want a quick show of hands. How many of you know how to count to 4? Just a show of hands. I have several applications here to be an SEC official. We can fill them out, we'll send them down to Freedom, Alabama, and we'll get things started after last night's wonderful job that they did. It's third down, let's punt. What are you, nuts? We confirmed it with the replay booth. They should be fired too. It is a privilege to be here. It's a privilege that I get the opportunity, by the way, to share an afternoon like this and to share the podium with Tim Curley, who's going to be here today to talk about Fran a little bit later. It is a privilege to be here with you, my friend. 51 years, are you nuts? God bless you. That is so great that you do that, Ralph. Thanks a lot. As for the cell phone bill, John, all right? John set up a GoFundMe page. So I thought it was a plea for help, isn't it? It is amazing that this is the first, but it's so important it is the first. And John made a really important point about how difficult it was. But even something as difficult as, for example, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. My longtime friend Peter King, whom I played Little League Baseball with, we grew up together in high school, the whole deal. He's one of the 46 voters for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They can only pick 5. Every year, 5. And that's how difficult it is to cut down every single year. For you to be the first ones in, what an incredible honor and privilege. And it sets the tone for everybody else along the way. Ralph Baker and Dave Robinson, to me, are the first two that got linebacker U going. Dave with the Green Bay Packers and Ralph with the Super Bowl champion New York Jets. Ralph made probably the biggest single play in the Jets AFL championship game, despite what David says. All right. The touchdown pass to Manning was nice, but your play was like, that's Penn State linebacker play when you picked up that ball in the 4th quarter. All right. You know, Dave Bradley playing the NFL with Green Bay and the World Football League. Cindy, congratulations to you. Tim, Alex, your family, and everybody that's here today as well. You've accomplished so much along the way, and it really does prove that in a country that seems so coast-centric, that the heart and soul of the country is what they call flyover country. It's us, right? Where you can come out of an area like this and you can play in the NFL. You can come out of an area like this and you can win a Super Bowl. You can come out of areas like this and accomplish anything along the way. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about Fran Fisher. I know Tim's going to talk about Fran, but I'm going to give it to you from a completely different perspective. First of all, it's great to have Jeff and Jerry. Jeff has accomplished so much in State College along the way and is a great part of Fran's legacy. Think about this, for 54 seasons, a Fisher was at the microphone for Penn State sports. Fran and Jerry, right? Jerry had an absolutely remarkable career of, what is it, 40 or 41 seasons, Jerry? 41 seasons of Lady Line basketball. 41 seasons. 40 seasons. It'll also be my 40th season, so I'll tell you this year, okay, about men's basketball. But 40 seasons. He was the dean of all women's sports broadcasters in the country. In the country. And the reason was Jerry did not just a good job, Jerry did an awesome job. And cared so deeply about his program, the same way all of you care so deeply about Mifflin County and Mifflin County sports. So I just want to make sure we salute the incredible career that Jerry's had as well. So Jerry. I'm sure your father told you many times how proud he was of you, but I can tell you he was extremely proud of you and everything that you accomplished, and you accomplished a lot. So it's broadcaster to broadcast, you're the best. As for Fran, here's the perspective I'll give you about Fran. Tim will tell a lot of great stories about her. But I'm the person that actually sits in the chair right now. So I understand all the traffic that goes with it. Fran was a great personality. Fran was a master of the one-liner, as John just talked about, the one-liner. The quickest wit I ever heard in my life was Fran Fisher. But I rarely hear this talked about, and I'll briefly touch on this. Fran Fisher was a great play-by-play announcer. Fran Fisher was a great play caller. Fran Fisher taught me that passion was important in the job. Fran Fisher taught me how important it was to connect with people. Nobody connected with people like Fran Fisher did. He made you feel like that you were their best friend. Before he stuck the knife in you with a little bit of wine. But he made you feel like your best friend. But Fran was a great announcer, a great describer of plays. And he put the excitement into every single game that he broadcast, whether it was a Little League game, a high school game, or a Penn State football or Penn State basketball game. He is forever, no matter who is sitting in that chair, and I happen to be the person fortunate doing now. Remember, he's from an era where usually 9 games out of the year were not on TV. You had to listen to the radio to understand what was going on with the game. And he always included everybody with credit, sometimes to their detriment. John Graham. Now, John was the color analyst with Fran for a few years near the end of the first tenure. But before that, John was the statistician. John was also in the National Guard at the time. And every single time they would ask John, we need you this weekend. I have to do the stats this weekend with Fran of the Penn State Network. Oh, okay, so they let John go for the weekend. So one day they're playing out at Air Force, and John tells them, hey, look, they got stats this weekend, Penn State's playing Air Force, blah, blah, blah. So Fran, of course, on the broadcast, game's going along, Fran says, boy, we sure do miss John Grant not being with us out here in Colorado Springs today. Phone rings, it's the National Guard. We'd like you to report tonight, John. We're not in Colorado, we were listening to Fran Fisher. But that's what Fran was. He is forever the voice of the Nittany Lions, no matter who is sitting in that chair. It is a privilege to be here with all of you today. I don't want to take up too much of your time. This is for the honorees, not for the guest speaker. Thank you so much for having me here today. It has been a privilege.
Before Steve leaves, we do have a basket we'd like to present him as a thank you. You're going to stay? Okay, great. Well, we just want to make sure
you keep your part short.
I'll do that. I'll do that. But we did have some local businesses that helped us out here a little bit. We'd like to thank Brookmere Winery. I like that gift there, Steve. And Asher's Chocolates for helping us with this basket. So a little token of our appreciation, Steve. Thanks again.
Thank you, brother. Just give from my table.
There's a letter or an envelope there that makes sure he doesn't throw like this.
Oh. There's also an envelope in there, Steve. There you go. Thank you. Okay, now time for the reason that we are all here tonight. As John said, deciding this list was certainly not an easy thing to do. If you're wondering about that, how can you have a say in this? Join the club. We'd love to have you in this association. All you need to do is write a check to join the club, help us out. We could use your dollars as well to help this thing grow. As John mentioned, that was not a fun part at all. They had a list, they sent out a bunch of names, and then everybody that's part of the club got a say in the votes. I had people that I had voted for myself that are here tonight, and some that unfortunately aren't, but I know will be soon. So I had a couple people come up and ask me, how do you do that? Well, that's how you can do that. Tona Williams, where's Tona at? Tona is the treasurer, correct, Tona?
Yes.
So if you'd like to think about joining, there's a sheet in the back of your program. She is the lady right there, okay? All right, we're going to get started tonight, and we're going in alphabetical order. Last name, that's how we decided to do these inductees. We have our 6 individuals first, and then following that, we'll be finished with our 2 teams tonight, actually being recognized as one in the Lewistown Girls 2 state championships. With each presentee, we have a little pre-recorded message we're going to have for you, and then I'll be calling somebody up to speak on their behalf and officially welcome them to the group. So at this point, Doug, if you're ready, you can cue video. We will start with Mr. Ralph Baker. It's been called one of the greatest upsets in the history of all sports, and Lewistown's Ralph Baker played a key role. The New York Jets faced the Baltimore Colts January 12, 1969 at the Orange Bowl in Super Bowl III. The Jets entered the game 18-point underdogs. By halftime, the Jets, behind Joe Namath, scored just 7 points. However, with Ralph Baker leading the stubborn Jet defense, Baltimore was scoreless. Baltimore's fortunes did not change in the second half. On the first play from scrimmage, they fumbled, and it was Ralph Baker who recovered for the Jets. The Colts only managed 11 yards on 7 plays in that quarter. The Jets, on the other hand, added another touchdown in the third and a field goal in the fourth. Baltimore's only score of the day came late in the final quarter. Final score, Jets 16, Colts 7. Baker and the Jets had pulled off one of the greatest upsets of all time, still being talked about today. A 1960 graduate of Lewistown High School, Baker went on to play for Rip Engel at Penn State and was co-captain his senior year. That year he was named to both the Hula Bowl and the East-West Shrine Game. With the NFL and AFL both conducting separate drafts during that time period, Baker was chosen by both the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Jets, with Ralph opting for the Jets and launching his professional career that spanned 11 seasons, starting on defense in 132 of those 142 games. Baker retired from his playing days after the 1974 season, moving on to an assistant coaching role for the Jets for 5 more years. The Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame is proud to select for induction Ralph Baker. Of course, Ralph is here tonight. We're here to say a few more words, tell us some things maybe we don't know about Ralph. Please welcome to the podium, Dr. B.C. Baker.
Thank you. Roger, just 1 second, please. There isn't a Baker alive today in Mifflin County that doesn't want to wear this number or hasn't worn this number over their sports career. I'm so honored to be able to be here to talk about my cousin Ralph. And a quick Google search will tell you he is one of the top 50 all-time New York Jets. All-time. One of the top 10 New York Jets linebackers of all time, right with his teammates Grantham and Atkinson in that top 10. Ralph is the best of the best. And if you haven't read Coach Radakovich's book, I recommend that you do so. Because in that book, Coach Radakovich says that Ralph is the top linebacker that he has known in his 55 years of coaching, and before and after. And mentions one span of a few games where he had 30 tackles every game. 30 tackles. Imagine that. It's incredible. And Ralph is from right here in Mifflin County. And I'll tell you, it all started here many years ago when he met, in elementary school, Betsy. Now, Betsy Baldwin was from Lombardy Circle. The Bakers were not. Ralph and Betsy stayed together and were married in a small family ceremony in New York 57 years ago today. So that's Betsy, I know it's been some 57 years. Now, Ralph will tell a story on himself being the country boy that he was. He had his mom and dad in the car with him, and he had to get through Central Park to be able to get to the church on time to that wedding. And he said he saw a big sign that said, "No commercial vehicles." And not knowing that that meant delivery trucks, he just didn't know how he was ever going to get to that church on time, but thank goodness he finally did. We're all fans of Ralph, but probably two of the super fans that I can talk about were Dick Weber and my mother. And it's only appropriate, since Mr. Weber started this all, that I tell you just a little story about him. We were at a game in Philadelphia. We came in the night before to stay in the hotel, and my parents had given me the talk one more time. This is the etiquette. This is how you address people. This is how you dress. And you know, I'm grateful for that talk because it helped me feel a lot more comfortable when I got outside the acreage of that farm in Juniata County as I moved on in my life. But that night, I got to talk especially because Dick Weber in the lobby went, and I went over to him and he said, "You let your mom and dad have dinner with Ralph and Betsy and some of the other couples. You come with me to the Atkinson Steakhouse." Oh, what excitement that was. And those of you who know Dick, pulls me over, puts me in a cab, and I was probably 10. First cab ride of my life. I sat there, it was great. We got to the restaurant within the line of sight of my dad. And Dick Weber said, "I'm going to teach you how to pour beer and not have any foam on top." All night long, I poured beer. My dad looked at me, and from that night on, Libby, what did my dad always say?
Ladies don't drink beer.
Ladies don't drink beer. My mother was also a super fan, and she today is gone 15 years. But one particular night when we were playing the Colts, we were in the hotel the night before, and my mom and her friend Doris spied Joe Namath in the bar. In they go. And several gin and tonics and 7 and 7s later, they left the bar, and the next day, Joe hadn't been in the bar all night, had passed for over 400 yards, and was in a dueling match with Johnny Unitas. It was a great night. Some of those trips were maybe not so good, and one was Pittsburgh. And you heard, thank goodness he didn't pick Pittsburgh, because I'm just not a Steeler fan, despite my husband, who comes from the Steel City. This particular game, when we got there was a big sign that said, "Ralph Baker, does Wheat Eubank really pay you enough to care? Them's fightin' swerves." And then Ralph, that same game, had his teeth knocked out. And when we were talking this week, he said, "Well, actually, that wasn't the first time I had my teeth knocked out. It occurred here at Lewistown, and the next night we all had face guards." So we can think about Ralph the hero, but I can also tell you about Ralph the country boy. And one of the times he and my dad were fishing, he left his ring, that ring, the ring he has on today, in my dad's glove box. And my dad then puts it in the mail and mails it back. Who would do that? And then there's Ralph the hunter. And you can't be from this area unless you're going to be a good hunter. So my dad, according to him, would put Ralph in the prime spot on the farm and go down to drive deer, but Ralph was always pulling out that sports page with the newspaper up right when the big buck ran past. Of course, as you saw, the highlight of Ralph's career for all of the fans here in Mifflin County and beyond was the Super Bowl. And my late sister was there as well, my family. And I can tell you, it was January 12th. Joe Namath's number was number 12. And my sister and I figured this all out. Our tickets cost $12, believe it or not. So that had to make sure a win that day. And I think Ralph's tremendous play not only sealed the Super Bowl win, but the AFC win before that as well. We couldn't have been more proud as a county. Now let's talk about Ralph's dad, Ralph Sr. Ralph Sr. was at the game and taking it all in. And I can remember my dad talking to him and hearing the story retold many times. Mr. Baker was not impressed with the fancy food he'd been eating that whole week. And at one time they went to a Polynesian restaurant. And if my memory can go back 50 couple years, I think the bill for a whole lot of people was $80. And Mr. Baker said, you know, for $1.25, you can get all the gravy you want at Red's. And from there, Ralph had an enjoyable career and got to mix and mingle with celebrities that we could only dream about. One such one was Johnny Carson. And during the 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl, we all saw so many things on, and man, my pride just swelled. And we started getting calls one night that Joe was on TV and talking about some of the highlights, and they happened to go to Johnny Carson, and his story went that Johnny Carson, like Joe, maybe enjoyed his spirits a little bit too much once in a while, and one night was feeling 10 foot tall and bulletproof and hit our big linebacker, Ralph Baker. Man, I was getting the calls, but Ralph just left it go, country boy that he was. And then Ralph corrected me and said, he didn't hit me. He handed me his watch, hit George Sowers, got more drunk, was kicked out, and then I went out, got him in a cab, handed him his watch, and he said, I remember, I'll get you someday. Despite all of that celebrity, Ralph came here to retire, to work in the Juniata County School District and here in Mifflin County as well. He's given us all something to cheer about, and all of the inductees today have done that. And Cindy, I'm telling you, as many times as I was at the YMCA, I just wanted to be you. All of those years. I just wanted to have that powder blue sweatsuit. I'm so proud to be here, and in a divided nation, isn't it nights like this that bring us together? Sports bring us together. It lifts us all up. And I can tell you that the rising tide of all of the inductees today lifts all ships. And I am so proud that Ralph's rising tide lifted my ship throughout all these years, my families and all of Mifflin counties. And I'm just telling you today, I'm so proud to be able, Ralph, to be in your wake. Come on up.
Thank you, Missy. She ended up saying almost everything I wanted to say. First of all, let me introduce the people that came with her, her husband Jim, her daughter Libby, and their friend Eric. And I'd like to introduce my wife. As Missy said, today is our anniversary, or at least I think it is. Because we got married in this chapel on the Upper East Side of New York. Riverside Church, yes, right. And the preacher who performed the ceremony, he spoke broken English, so I'm not sure whether we're married or not. We've been living together for 57 years, and please give her one more round of applause. I want to thank the organization, the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame. Well, first of all, for organizing. I think it's something that is definitely needed, or was definitely needed here in Mifflin County. Not because I'm one of the people that was selected in the first group, but just because I believe there were a lot of very good athletes. There are a lot of very good athletes in Mifflin County, and there were going way back. And so I want to thank them for starting this, and hope it continues for many years, and many people get in that are deserving of this. I want to congratulate all the other honorees, the other people that are being inducted today. And actually, I want to congratulate the people that were on the ballot and didn't get selected this time, but hopefully in the not too distant future, they will be selected, and we'll have a chance to be up here and say their little piece also. Having Steve Jones here, he reminded me that he worked with Jack Ham, and I just want to tell you, Misi mentioned Bad Brad, or Dan Radakovich. We call him Bad Brad. That's what he liked to be called. That's the name of the book, Bad Brad. Something about Nomad. But anyway, but just to tell you a Rad story. Rad always recruited Long Island, and when we lived there, when he came to recruit, he often stayed at our house. And usually when he came, he'd bring along some film or something, because he knew I had a projector to watch game film and all, and he'd bring along some film of Penn State football. So this one year he came up. Well, the Jets, after they drafted me, they had a habit of drafting Penn State linebackers. After me, they drafted Bruce Bannon. They drafted Denny Onkons. They drafted John Eversole. So anyway, this one year he came up, he brought this film along. He said, I want you to look at these Penn State linebackers. So we looked at it, the film, and then when it was all done, he says, what do you think? I said, well, I'll tell you what. You make sure they don't send that number 33 up to the Jets. 33 was Jack Ham. I want to play a few more years. You can tell Jack that he probably heard that before, but you can remind him. I appreciate him going to the Steelers. You know, oftentimes people ask, why were you were selected by both the Jets and the Steelers. Why did you end up with the Jets? And of course, one of the reasons was the money was a little bit better than the Steelers offered, but not that much to make that much difference. But the Steelers wanted me to play as an outside linebacker. And when I was at Penn State, we played what we called a 52, and we had two inside linebackers, and I was one of the inside linebackers. So I wanted to play in the middle, and the Steelers had a pretty good middle linebacker at that time, Myron Patios. And the Jets, they had no linebackers to speak up other than Larry Grantham, who was an outside linebacker. So we promised that I could play in the middle. So anyway, I signed with the Jets, and about 3 days after I signed, I got a call from Weeb. He said, guess what? We just traded for a middle linebacker. You're going to be an outside linebacker. So they lie. But anyway, that's how I ended up with the Jets. And the reason I didn't want to be an outside linebacker was, and Nisi can verify this, there's never been a Baker in Mifflin County or Juniata County that had any kind of speed. And I knew that I didn't want to play the outside because I knew you had the pass coverage was a lot harder. But I ended up lasting 11 years, so that wasn't too bad. Actually, going back to well, I also want to thank all the coaches that I played for. I mean, I was very fortunate. In high school, I played the head coach, who, of course, was Alex Shafima, who's going to be, again, re-inducted tonight, I guess. At Penn State, it was Rip Engel, and with the Jets, it was Weed Eubank. Now, Weed was a great coach, but he was the cheapest general manager in the world. That's another story. But actually, I dealt, as a lineman and a linebacker, we dealt more with the assistant coaches than the head coach. And so, actually, Joe Chickatana was the assistant coach at Lewistown when I was there. He was actually my next door neighbor. And he really, really helped me learn to be up while I was a guard. He taught me how to pull and everything. Of course, we had what was called the dream backfield. Well, my sophomore year, I didn't play that much because we had a senior line, but my junior year and my senior year, we played all the time, and of course we had the dream backfield, and one of the backs was a junior over there. But anyway, there really was a lot of great athletes at that time, and just to name on our team from that era, well, first of all, we had the longest winning streak in the state. At that time, we won 26 straight games before we finally lost to Lock Haven my senior year. We lost 6-0 over at Lock Haven. And I honestly believe we would have won the game had Tom Brown, our quarterback, not gotten a dislocated finger on his throwing hand the night before the game, and we fumbled the ball 5 or 6 times in the game. We just never could get any offense going. We lost 6-0. But anyway, some of the guys that were on those teams, we had Junior Powell, who ended up getting a scholarship to Penn State, as did I. Fred Stoichev went to the university, got a scholarship to University of Pennsylvania. Gary Sprout got a scholarship to Colorado University. Jack Sear got a scholarship to the University of Iowa. Bill Swineford got it to Bucknell. Some of the other guys that didn't play until my senior year, Tom Brown got a scholarship. Mike Price got one to the University of Delaware. Mike Hogue got one to Memphis State University. So we had a lot of very good athletes, and I think those people really helped make me a better player. What I'd like to do, just for a second, and some of the stuff was already talked about in the little film and some of EC stuff, but just some of the highlights, or what I consider the highlights, and then I'll shut up and sit down and let somebody else talk. But at Lewistown, like I said, the 26-game winning streak, Alex Shafima's 100th win was part of that. What else do I have here? Yeah, I need my glasses again. Receiving the football scholarship to Penn State. When I went to Penn State, I started out as a down lineman, and actually, of all the recruits of my class in 1960, there was only 2 of us that did not redshirt. Don Kong, who was from Harrisburg, and myself. We played straight through and graduated in 4 years. I started out in my sophomore year as a down middle guard playing over the the center. But then we had this linebacker who was mentioned before, Dave Robinson. He got hurt, so they moved me from a down lineman to I took his place on the second team, because they had crazy rules in those days about playing college football. You were only allowed to go in once a quarter. I don't know how many people might remember this, but the official actually checked off your number at the beginning of each quarter. And you played as long as you wanted in that quarter, but the minute you went out, you were done for that quarter, and then it started all over the next quarter. So we actually played two teams all the time there at Penn State. We call it, it was the blue team was the first team, and then the red team, or the Reddies, was the second team. And so I played on the second team as an end for a while. I actually caught one pass. I have one pass reception to my credit at Penn State. But anyway, when Robbie came back, that was about the end of my playing time, because he ended up being a Hall of Famer in both college and the NFL. But things that I'm most proud of, we went to 2 Gator Bowl games. When we went to the Gator Bowl game, we saw segregation at its truest form. We played at the Gator Bowl, but we were not allowed, they would not allow us to stay at a hotel in Jacksonville because of Dave Robinson being black. We had to stay in St. Augustine the 2 years we played there. Our senior year, at the end of my sophomore year, Dan Radakovich converted me. He talked the coaches into converting me to a linebacker, and so I played linebacker the last 2 years. But at the end of spring practice, my sophomore year, I won the Red Worrell Most Improved Player Award. And then I played linebacker the next 2 years. My senior year, it said on the film I was a co-captain, but actually at that time, the players elected, and they elected one captain. So I was the captain of the team my senior year, not a co-captain. And then our senior year, we had a chance to go to a bowl game, but we voted it down. We did not want to go. It wasn't the fun that they have now at these bowl games. They took us to Fort Eustis and they beat the living daylights out of us. And it just wasn't fun. So I got to play the East-West Shrine game, the Hula Bowl. Then that summer, then I was drafted by both the Jets and the Steelers. That summer I played in a coaches All-American game that was held at that time in Buffalo. And then I played in the college All-Star game, which had the All-Stars going against the pros. And the first guy I ever lined up against was Mike Ditka, who was an All-Pro in himself. And then during my career with the Jets, of course, the highlight was the championship game and then the Super Bowl. I played the very first game that the Jets ever played in at Chase Stadium. And I actually had an interception in that game. I had never had an interception in my college career. And then the last game I ever played in at Chase Stadium, I had a 67-yard interception for a touchdown. So I had an interception the first and the last game I ever played. I coached in the last game that the Jets ever played in Shea Stadium. So I spent a lot of time with Shea. The last couple of years, I was voted captain there of the defensive team, and that was pretty much it. The year after we won the Super Bowl, the next year, we made it to the championship game. We played Kansas City. We lost to them at Shea Stadium, but they went on and they won the Super Bowl, Super Bowl IV. So that was some consolation. And I did get to coach with the Jets. We were in a championship game there. We lost again to Miami. The consolation was we got to coach in the Hula Bowl, and that was pretty nice to be able to take your family out to Hawaii and spend the week. We didn't do much in the way of football. We just got everybody lined up, and that was about it. But anyway, it is an honor to be selected to the Hall of Fame. Sorry I took so much time, but it's really an honor. And thank you very much.
I'd like to take a second just to thank some local businesses who helped the organization out tonight with some donations to help make this event possible. Geisinger here in Lewistown, MCS Bank, and also a business that is near and dear to our next inductee, Philips Ultrasound. I do want to say just one thing before this next inductee. Having worked with female sports for 35 years myself, I've seen some of the, I don't know if injustices are the words or not, but I know Kevin can speak to this too. The girls didn't always get what the boys got. Sometimes it's still there, still is there. So to me, it was awesome that we would have a female in our first induction tonight. Our next inductee, are we ready over there, Doug? Cindy Baxter.
From Penn Highlands High School in 1972 came Cindy Baxter. At Penn Highlands, she played softball and basketball.
I'm not
moving on to Lockhaven University for softball. Ironically, Cindy was 21 before she discovered the sport. Recognition on both the national and international levels. That sport, racquetball. In a time when options for women's sports were limited, Baxter's skills on the court worldwide elevated the prestige of the United States national racquetball team in the 1980s. She became the first American athlete to win consecutive gold medals in the International Federation World Games in 1981, 84, and 86. Her achievement in that sports have been documented by the Guinness Book of World Records. Cindy Baxter's career generated 16 national titles and was twice named Sportswoman of the Year in racquetball by the United States Olympic Committee. Her dream of competing for the U.S. in the 1988 Olympic Games was denied, however, when the IOC failed to add racquetball to its list of sports for that Olympiad. A career of stellar proportions was culminated in 1991 when she was inducted into the United States Racquetball Hall of Fame. She's also a member of the Pennsylvania Racquetball Hall of Fame. Tonight, she takes her place in the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame, where we are proud to welcome Cindy Baxter.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, a gentleman who I'm sure will be up here himself soon to speak about Cindy. Please welcome Harold Jr. Powell.
Well, I blew it. And that's a tough act to follow, the previous speakers. And as you can see, I have a dental and an eye problem. But nevertheless, I was trying to think of some kind of analogy here. And the only clever, which I think is clever thing I could say, I like to feel like the sock left in the dryer in the laundromat. I would like to mention, now Ralph sort of corrected it, but he was the captain of our team over at school. I say school, that's how I characterize Penn State. When I was a senior, we were seniors together. And we had 67 members of the squad, and he was unanimous. He got 66 votes. And I know for sure, because the vote he didn't get, I voted for myself. That's pity. I recognize pity applause. I do have to say something that in some of the other speakers did mention, the state of our nation. I'm not going to get too maudlin or melodramatic. The one thing that really does weigh on me immensely, and I want you all to remember, you probably know, we're probably going to be here for about 2 hours today, give or take. And during that period of time, there are going to be 3,000 babies aborted. So just to me, that's the most telling statistic in our nation right now. I want to move on to more pleasant business, and in fact, this is probably the most pleasant thing I've ever been honored to do, and that is recognizing Cindy Lou Baxter. Briefly, I think we ought to have a background of racquetball because it is a relatively minor sport. But it started here at our YMCA back around 1974 to 75, and it was primarily due to the efforts of Dick Gingrich. He was chairman of the board. I don't know if Dick's here today with Krista or not, but he was chairman of the board of the Y, which he had that position for many years. And he also had a selfish interest because he picked up handball over at Penn State. And of course, to build the two courts sort of were, you know, something he half enjoyed. But real quick, the sport took off, and I think within a year, if you wanted to get a court there, on Monday mornings at 6 o'clock, you called into the girls on duty, the secretaries or whatever, and by 6:30 they were all filled up. And there were some, you know, when they made mistakes, there could be, I don't know if there were ever fisticuffs, but there was some hard feeling because that was so popular. Mainly from 6 o'clock to 1 in the afternoon, and then in the evening from 4 till 9. And then they started leagues and everything else, and for about 5 or 6 years, it just was probably the most popular activity at the YMCA. The next thing that came is whenever we started, the players got good enough to go to tournaments, open tournaments, and then the state tournaments and what have you. And then this is where Cindy entered the picture. After she got out of Lock Haven University, she started playing and took to it, you know, like a duck to water. The demand became so great, within about 3 years, we added 2 more courts and a glass court so we could have high-quality tournaments. And even there, we had attracted people from not only Pennsylvania, from out of state. But then, like all sports, tennis, etc., it runs in cycles, so it eventually petered out. I'm proud to say that we probably had, well, not only Cindy as nationally ranked players and state ranked players, but probably 6 other people that had a great deal of success. I have to check my notes here. My memory isn't the greatest, as you probably surmised. But getting directly to Cindy. Full name, Cindy Lou Baxter, born November 27, 1954, to Clayton and Thelma Baxter, Lewistown Hospital, and she joined an older brother, Dwight, in the family. Dad worked at Nabisco, which was to be expected, and her mom was the secretary for Dr. Stephen Marthouse. She received her education degree from Lock Haven University, just did a smattering of student teaching, and then decided that wasn't for her. Went to work, I believe, I hope I have this right, at, was New Holland first? Okay, got that. And then I think later New Holland merged with Phillips, or morphed into Phillips, and she's been there for 38 years and now is head of production. Around 30 people, well, supervisor of production, with about 30 people under her. As far as the she and I's history, right after I got out of Penn State, I went into the Air Force for 4 years, got into handball, then when I come back to Lewistown, I still was playing a little handball, but I decided to switch into racquetball, and that's when Cindy and I hooked up. And believe me, a lot of times I remember Chrissy Ever a couple of years ago, she was criticized for saying that, you know, people said she played like a man, and that annoyed some feminists, but Chrissy herself said, I was always flattered when somebody said I played like a man. And I can say with Cindy, she not only played like a man or a guy, she played like a darn good guy. And some people have said I mentored her, but believe me, I did not mentor her. I learned more from her than she did from I. And so my interest in her game was, there was a lot of selfishness to it. After that, why I did sort of help her because I had played a ton of handball tournaments, and that's a different beast. Anybody here that's played, you know, other than pickup games and tennis or racquetball or golf knows when you're playing a tournament. So I think I did help her in that regard, and I would match her up, you know, with some of our local players, like with Bernie Howard. He was just, I don't know if you know Bernie, but he's real fastidious and goes to the books and that. In fact, to the point where he's a little anal. And that's not meant to be offensive. That's I think Bernie would agree with me. Then Mike Hartman, he's very powerful, isn't real mobile, but that's who I suggested that she play him a lot. And then also he's very stylish. You know, he was in the high-end automobile business, and I felt that was good exposure for Cindy, along with Mike's glamorous wife, Jean. I just felt maybe Cindy could get a little mod and what have you from being around, and a little stylish. And I was hoping Jean would be here, and Mike, I know, is going to carry this message to her, because she is so mod. Again, remembering Mike's in the high-end car business, Jeannie has a Porsche Carrera tattooed on her navel. But anyhow, the lead-in was pretty good in describing all of Cindy's accomplishments. I know within 2 years she was a contender. She was a state runner-up, and then I think that was 2 years in a row. And then the third year she became state champ, and then that lasted for 6 years. And she got on the pro tour and started winning international events, etc., etc. We would play twice a week, and then Mike and the other guys would, you know, fill in. And they never felt they were playing down to her. They all learned something from it. And I do wanted to mention, though, there came a point, I'll never forget, there was a John Wayne movie, I think, called McClintock. And right at the lead-in, his grandson had been kidnapped. And, you know, they were scurrying around. They were from a very wealthy family. and deciding how they were going to go about retrieving the grandson. And I remember Maureen O'Hara, she was his wife in that particular movie, and there was a scene where they come in with a close-up, and she said, "What we need here is the meanest, rottenest individual that we can find." And of course, it turned out to be John Wayne. It was, I imagine some of you remember that movie. But that's the one missing link with Cindy. She was, and I imagine her co-workers will disagree with me, but I always felt she was shy and sort of gentle. And that's the part of the problem. Your co-workers will be ha-ha in that. But I kept thinking, who in the round here fits that description? And an image slowly appeared, and finally it was a guy, I think a lot of you know, at least people in the know of athletics around here, a guy by the name of Jeff Miller. One of the States, I don't know, Steve, you may be too young for him. One of their all-time great basketball players. And I was hoping he'd be here tonight, but he isn't. But anyhow, without further ado, I want to Cindy take over. But I will say this, I regret that, and this can go for a lot of athletes, she was so exceptional. It's a shame somebody didn't discover her when she was like 12 years old, and I mean this, because I know darn well she could have made money on the pro tennis tour, because she is a much better athlete than somebody like Chrissy Everett. And I'm not demeaning Chrissy, but that's how much talent she had. So Cindy, it's all yours.
How do I follow something like that? So, Junior told the story. I'll tell a little bit about the story as well. Lock Haven graduate. I had racquetball class. There was one court at the university. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of cool, back in 75-ish. I'm like, yeah, I like this. It's in a court, 20 by 40 by 20 by 40. You just, it's not like tennis where you have to go miss a shot. You have to go chase your ball down for 5 minutes later once you dig it out of the reeds. It was confined to the court. It was a quick sport. The balls travel really fast. And I kind of liked that sport. I competed in basketball, softball throughout my high school, and in college I played softball. One thing, Junior, you didn't mention that you were going to, in basketball in high school, I had a high game score of 40 points. Back then, that was pretty good. Basketball girls, is that pretty good? Yeah, 40 points is pretty good. And again, I was always into the sports. Coming back from college, now what am I going to do? I'm not a team. What am I going to get into? Team sports, individual sports. Well, you know that in team sports, it's about you and your teammates. In individual sports, it's about you. And when I say it's about you, if you do lousy, you're not going to win. If you do good, you're going to win. So the time, the commitment, all of that, the dedication, it was all about you and that self-fulfillment of, yeah, I did a good job. I practiced hard, played hard, and then here's your result. Thank the Junior and Mike, and he mentioned Jeff Miller. Never played a guy like Jeff Miller, big tall guy, so quick on the court. Vinny Castro's here, played Vinny. Ask me how many females and how many women that I played at the Y. Not very many. So I don't know if that was any indication of the caliber that the play and the intensity that I had and the competitiveness that I had to play the guys. And you know what? I started beating the guys. Okay, guys out there, it hurts a little bit. It hurts your ego. And they finally thought, well, you know what? We're just playing a game or a match of racquetball. It's not she, Cindy, against me, Mike, or Junior. And again, Junior taught me the mental, definitely the mental toughness. I always remember on the court, he didn't have a real good stroke mechanics, neither did I. I was self-taught, didn't take really a formal coaching class at all. And remember, that was back in the day. And Gina would always say, put the ball where you came from, where your opponent came from. I'm like, what? It worked. Every time. He had these little dink shots. Drives you crazy. That was the mental toughness that he taught. I would go into the Y, and I would go into the court. We'd play our game or match. We'd practice, we'd do drills, this and that. One day I went in there and he had one of the strings of lights were turned off. I go, what's going on? Did they lose power? And he said, no, this is part of the conditioning that I'm trying to help you condition too, with the mental and the distractions and all of that. So yeah, he taught me a lot. Michael was there every day, pretty much every day, to compete, to work hard, to make me a better player. Again, Jeff Miller, Bernie Howard, pretty much introduced me and encouraged me to participate in the first Nittany Lion Open over in State College, 1976-77. I played a girl named Lucy Zarfos, and Junior knows her. Boy, did I get beat. Oh my, I really got beat. So what did that do for me? I'm not giving up. I went home, I practiced harder, got better, and one thing led to another. Competing in national tournaments, getting on the U.S. team, and I guess during the time that I was being successful and I could do no wrong, but I could win a lot, you don't realize you're doing that, you're winning that during that time, but afterwards you step back and you're like, wow, I really did that. Countries, went to 6 different countries, and in doing so, again, back in the 80s, it was more the ambassadors that we were with the United States team to go and teach, introduce these countries to the sport of racquetball, so that we would get a lot more participation throughout the world. Today, that's there. So I'm very thankful that I was part of that. Along the way, just to mention too, I didn't have a lot of money to travel. At that time, really didn't have that much sponsorship. People like Lincoln's Distributor. Everyone knows Lincoln's Distributor. Anyone remember that I was on a billboard down 322? Welcome home, Cindy Baxter, world champ, so and so forth, something like that. So he helped promote my ability to go and play in tournaments with some of the money. Also, Echo Ultrasound. Back then, it was called Echo Ultrasound. They were gracious enough to allow me to take time off, and also some of the monetary, the monies that they had also given me to help my expenses. And then, last but not least, I just heard Phillips Ultrasound, where I'm working now, the same, the monetary. So it's really neat to hear all that and all the support that they had given me. And likewise, throughout the community, each and every one of you. I haven't seen some of you forever. Joel, I haven't seen Joel forever, and people like yourself. Some of my coworkers are here. I want to thank them for showing up and being here for the support. But some other things that I want to that are worth noting to me. All the victories, all the wins, all the plaques, all the medals, yeah, that's okay. But, let me see my notes here. But along with that, it gave me opportunities in my travels, again, to help promote the sport in the countries. You could say I was there when the sport was just beginning to become popular. World competitions, many instances, I was selected as team captain, and as selected, again, this is very, touches me to this day, that I had the privilege to carry the United States flag, opening and closing ceremonies. That's priceless, right there. 1985 and 86, United States Olympic Committee Sportswomen of the Year in Racquetball. Okay, another award. But I was in the company with Greg Louganis, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, David Robinson, the basketball player, Carl Lewis. So that was a big wow there. So all those experiences with my racquetball and my success in racquetball had taken me to foreign countries, meeting new people, new friends, and to this day I still keep in touch with some of those people, which is very, very fulfilling. And in closing, again, it's been a journey. A lot of you may not know or have known what I did. I always just say to people would ask, well, what did you do? Go Google me. Because I can't remember all those recognitions and awards. You can go Google me. But again, it gave me the opportunity to teach and promote the sport. The recognition here has been very much appreciated. And once again, I want to thank everyone who contributed to my success. Thank you to the Hall of Fame members for recognizing the great achievements, not only for myself as the first class of the inductees, but for everyone that's here. And I'm sure that this is going to carry over for many more years to come. So, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. You ready over there, Chief? Okay. Our next inductee, the late Dave Bradley. From the green and white of Chief Logan High School to the green and gold of the NFL's Green Bay Packers, Burnham's Dave Bradley is fondly remembered for his exploits on the football field as a family man and as an easygoing friend to many. Bradley was a multi-sport athlete for the Mingos. As a senior, he was a first-team All-State selection in football by both the Associated Press and the UPI. He was also named to the prestigious football team for the Big 33 Classic in Hershey. After high school, he crossed the mountain, joining the Penn State Nittany Lions as both a guard and tackle. The highlight of his collegiate career came under head coach Joe Paterno at the 1969 Orange Bowl, a game listed among the best in Lions history. Ranked third in the nation and aiming for its first ever undefeated season, Penn State faced number 6 Kansas. Trailing by 7 with 1 minute and 16 seconds to play, Penn State blocked a Kansas punt and followed that with a touchdown pass by quarterback Chuck Burkhardt. Trying for a 2-point conversion, Penn State's pass attempt was batted down. Kansas fans rushed the field, not knowing that a penalty for having 12 men on the field would give Penn State a second chance, a chance that would not go undenied. Final, Penn State 15, Kansas 14. Bradley was selected to the Senior Bowl and Hula Bowl teams before advancing to the pro ranks. As an added honor for his collegiate career, Bradley was also named to the Penn State 1960s All-Decade Team. The 1969 NFL Draft saw Dave being selected in the second round by the Green Bay Packers, the 38th overall pick. His pro career spanned 3 seasons with the Pack, 1 year with the Cardinals, and a final year with the Chicago Fire of the World Football League. Tonight, the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame honors the memory of Dave Bradley. here to tell us more about Dave, please welcome to the podium Mr. Jim Foster.
Even old people get nervous. But it's certainly a humbling occasion to have this opportunity tonight. And I want to tell you that Ralph and Junior were my idols as a kid. So I feel pretty young. Not that much difference. So I want to say congratulations to the committee and all the inductees chosen tonight. I'd especially like to thank Dottie and all her family for giving me this opportunity to posthumously present Dave for this honor. It's quite a difficult thing to do. I have a couple former teammates here that will vouch for everything I'll tell you about Dave. I'm not going to tell you about his accolades. I'm going to tell you who was Dave Bradley. We all see his accomplishments and achievement that certainly qualify him for this elite first class of Mifflin County Hall of Fame. But who was he as a young man? First of all, he was a year older than myself in school. And as a teenager, I'm going to tell you about those years. He was my best friend. Let's go back about 58 years. Oh my God, some of you aren't even that old. 58 years to 1963. That was the time when we grew up, Chief Logan Mingo's. That's who we were. Our fathers, like most fathers here, worked at Standard Steel. As kids, we'd see a daily migration of men with their lunch pails going to and from the mill. It was a way of life. It was our future, unless we could create an opportunity to do something else. A way that something else might happen would be through sports. The steel mill was good. It was the lifeblood of our community. But some had dreams. Could we get there? Time to tell. In the summers, Dave and Dottie and I worked at a concession stand at Whipple Dam State Park. That's what we did as juniors and seniors. We ran the concession stand. Every morning, we would go there bright and early, and Dave and I would run around the park to try to get in shape. I would run and struggle breathing a couple times. He would run 7, 8, 10, 5 times more than I did. He had a great work ethic to drive himself to get in shape. So we did that, and we'd play catch-a-walk, go to work, drive, every late afternoon we'd drive over the mountain to do what? Play baseball. Babe Ruth, whatever the league was we were playing, I can't quite remember. Dave hated baseball, by the way. He hated to play baseball. But that was kind of our joke. And then we'd drive back and do it all over again. The Whipple Dam experience, as I look back now, was great for all of us, because it taught you people skills. Please, thank you. The customer's always right. We'd get in arguments. We didn't get in arguments. People would yell at you, your hamburger wasn't done this way or that way, whatever. But it was a nice experience. Long story short, we were together all the time. But the last week of July changed, because now our whole life focused on August 18th, which used to be the standard start day for high school football practice in this area. We had to get ready. That was easier said than done. However, Dave, our leader, our teammate, stepped up. I was kind of a lazy young man. I didn't want to force myself to go out and run, do all the things that were necessary. What would he say? Get your ass up and let's go. And a lot of people can vouch for that, so we get groups of guys go up to the field somewhere, work out, hours and hours, throwing passes, catching passes. That's what we did there. Not too many distractions. And then the day finally came. Why did Dave do this for us, drive us? He had a natural instinct to help us work harder, I guess, to make everyone better, to make the men in the mill in our community proud, to honor our school, of course, and for ourselves. That's why he pushed us. It was a different and wonderful time where tradition and values were important. The Bible says, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. Dave was our light, our team's light, our inspiration, our driving force, our mentor. He was serious, quiet, and certainly intense. We're talking about a young teenage man. We did things teenagers did in those days. Not too much different than today, without the technology. Listened to music, acted silly, thought we could sing into the old reel-to-reel tape recorder. And certainly we laughed a whole lot. We run 3 sports together, and oh, by the way, this is kind of a personal thing. He drove us every day in a crazy green station wagon to and from practice up on top of Yeagertown when the car did run. He was my brother. As a senior, he was Parade Magazine All-American. He made it. Dave graduated, went to Penn State. Next year I graduated, went to University of South Dakota. We lived our lives, raised families, and did things for the next 30 plus years without much contact. Then one day, years ago, when we were both back in town, we got together. And what happened? Not much. It's like we never left. We never missed a beat. That's what real friendship is. Hard work and dedication make you great, but you can't do it alone. Dave was there for many who needed that hand. If you can remember this, everything that has a beginning has an ending. Then everything will be fine. For my life, for Dave, for Dottie, I'm blessed. I give thanks to God, believing his son Jesus died on the cross for us, dead and buried, rose on the 3rd day to live again, giving us the promise of eternal life, to be together again with those we love. If there's no love, there's no grief. As Dave's closest friend for all those formative years, I can tell you for certain, there was only one love in Dave's world, then and forever. Now I ask that love to come up and receive this honor for Dave Brett. Dottie.
Thank you very much. I wish he could be here with us. Unfortunately, he's not. So on behalf of my family and Dave, thank you.
Our next inductee, the late Fran Fisher.
Although not a native of Mifflin County, Fran Fisher's name is embedded with one of the great moments in this area's sports history. The Ohio native moved from Greensburg to Lewistown in 1962. A year later, as the play-by-play announcer for WKVA Radio, Fran thrilled the fans here at home as the Eagles of Roth Rock High School defeated Jim Thorpe for the State Class C Basketball Championship. Honing his broadcast skills came from coverage of many sports, from local Little League games to auto racing at the Port Royal Speedway. Then in 1966, his talents were recognized by Penn State, when Fran became the football color commentator. Then in 1970, he advanced to behind the microphone as the play-by-play announcer for the Nittany Lions. Penn State was not new to Fran. He was a mechanical engineering student in the 1940s and also played saxophone in the Penn State Blue Band. His greatest thrill, perhaps, came in the 1983 Sugar Bowl, when the Lions defeated unbeaten Georgia to win their first national championship in football. From that post, he provided the excitement of Penn State football to millions of listeners into the 1990s. His duties included announcing other Penn State sports as well, and he hosted a weekly television and radio call-in shows featuring legendary coach Joe Paterno. One final note, Fran was also instrumental in the development of the iconic Nittany Lion logo, still used today. Fisher will be long remembered as more than just the voice of Penn State sports. His legacy will also include the title Ambassador for the Pennsylvania State University. The Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame now adds the beloved Fran Fisher.
Here to tell us a little more about Fran, please welcome Mr. Tim Curley.
Thank you very much, Roger. Appreciate that very much. And good afternoon to everyone. It's awesome to be here. I really want to thank my former colleague, Steve Jones, for being here. The fact that he would show up after just a thrilling night last night is great. And, you know, as the speakers, Roger was up here talking, I was kind of thinking about a few things. And I was thinking about, how would you describe Steve Jones? And I started thinking, you know, one thing you would not say about Steve is that he's mod. He's not stylish. So Mike, we got to get your wife, we got to get Steve. Please get together and see if we might be able to. Can you imagine Steve Jones with a Sean Clifford tattoo on his name? Maybe a little white out. That would look good. I was also thinking about Steve's comment about the officiating last night, and could you imagine, Ralph gave us, I never knew about the substitution. I didn't realize that about the substitution. Could you imagine the officials, Steve, today, having, make sure they knew when somebody came in and came out?
They can't count down.
I think Auburn would have had 14 guys on the field under that scenario. But hey, you know, when I was driving over today from State College, I was thinking back to Fran's career and just thinking about some of the wonderful times and memories that we had. And, you know, this night just really reminded me of something that we did at Penn State. And that was in 1996, or 1986. We celebrated 100 years of Penn State football. And some of you might have remembered we coined it as the Century of Excellence. And we had a series of events to commemorate and celebrate our great 100 years of this wonderful tradition and history of Penn State football. And I'll never forget, it was a very successful time, a very successful event. And after it was over, I remember having a conversation with Coach Paterno, and he said, you know what, Tim? He said, I really, really enjoyed the Century of Excellence. I really enjoyed participating in it. And up until that point, Penn State had really not really celebrated its rich tradition. And he looked at me and he said, you know what, Tim? He said, we've been so busy trying to make history that we've forgotten to celebrate it. We've been too busy trying to make history that we've forgotten to celebrate it. He said, you know, it's important that we stop, that we take the time to recognize, that we take the time to honor, to celebrate and cherish all the wonderful memories and accomplishments of all the great athletes that have made us all Penn State proud in our case. Well, tonight here in Mifflin County, you know what we're doing tonight? we're stopping, we're recognizing, we're honoring, we're celebrating, and we're going to cherish this inaugural class that's going in here tonight. So I want to thank and congratulate John Zimmerman, all the board members for putting this together. It's important that we stop. You all have a rich tradition over here. Just listening to all these stories, it's an amazing, amazing stories of the wonderful people that have made up the sports scene here in Mifflin County, and I congratulate all of you. I want to thank the Fishers for giving me an opportunity just to say a few words about their legendary father. I had the great opportunity to not only work with Fran and be a colleague of him, but he was one of my mentors. He was somebody that I just thoroughly watched as a young administrator coming up, and he made a great impact on my life. And you know, I think all of us know that there aren't many guarantees in life. You know, the old saying that really there's only two things that's guaranteed, and that's taxes and death. But I have a couple of guarantees that I can tell you about Fran Fisher. And the first thing is that I can guarantee you that Fran would cherish this honor tonight. It would mean a great deal to him. Fran had a lot of accolades in his life, but I can tell you that this one would be right up there with all of the other ones. I can also guarantee that Fran would have been honored to be selected in this inaugural class. It would have meant the world to him, and to be joining all of these other great honorees that we're honoring here tonight. He especially would have loved to be in the same class with Dave Bradley and the great Ralph Baker. There was just something about anybody from Mifflin County that came over to Penn State, and certainly Dave and Ralph. I know that Fran's up there smiling with Dave right now, and it means an awful lot to him. And I can also guarantee you that Fran never, ever forgot his roots and where he came from. Fran became a big personality. He was as big as life. Some people thought he was bigger than Joe Paterno sometimes. He was that big, but he never forgot where he came from. And I can tell you that those Little League games that he called, that state championship game he called, all of the events that he called over here, really honed his skills to put him in a position to go on and do the things that he did in such a great way. You know, I've been thinking this whole time when I was driving down the Port Royal Speedway. I would give a lot of money to pull out that tape of Fran Fisher doing an auto race. That sounds like an accident waiting to happen. But I can tell you that calling all of those events over here meant just as much as the Cotton Bowl, as the Orange Bowl, as the Sugar Bowl, as the Rose Bowl, all those great games that he called throughout his years, all the basketball games, all the state high school PIA championships, TV quarterbacks, meeting with Joe every Thursday night. He remembers all of you over here in Mifflin County. And he can remember who played third base on that Little League team. That's what a great memory he had. He's just an unbelievable, but he never forgot his roots. I also can guarantee you that Fran valued and appreciated and cherished all the wonderful people that make up this great community over here. He was very loyal to this community, very, very loyal. And you know, there was something about Fran that, you know, I traveled a lot with him, and there was something about Fran that he had 1 million fans that would come up to him all the time. And, you know, when somebody from Mifflin County came up to him, he got a twinkle in his eye, got a big smile on his face. Spent a little extra time with him. He loved somebody from Mifflin County. I can also guarantee you that Fran loved his family. He loved his wife, Charlotte. He loved his entire family. He loved his 2 sons here. He loved his grandkids. He loved the fact that these 2 followed in his footsteps. It's pretty neat when your kids follow what you do. And he really, really loved his family, and he loved the Penn State family. I know all of us that got a chance to be in Fran's circle, we want to thank you for giving him this honor. It means a great deal to all of us, because he was a special man, and we miss him. And I hope all of you, when you look at that Lion logo, you think of Fran Fisher, because he's the one that was Penn State. He's the one that put that logo together. And every time I drive by that stadium and I see that logo, I think of Fran. It's now my pleasure to introduce his son, who I know he was so proud of, so proud of. Could you say a few more words about his great dad and to accept this great honor that you've bestowed on him? Thank you so much.
Can I use these notes? Wow, Tim, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you very much. We are honored to be here. Needless to say, my brother and I. And the Port Royal Speedway, didn't you have a hernia attack at the Port Royal Speedway when you were young? Well, that's what I was told. You had a hernia attack and I had to rush you to the hospital from Port Royal. Or appendix.
They're looking, but say look.
Well, you know, a lot of people know Dad from his affiliation with Penn State and all things like that. But what people don't really know is my father was a family man, an amazing family man. I don't know if, I know some people in here know this, but I suffered a loss 20-some years ago when my wife was killed in a car accident. And I had to make a phone call to my wife's mother to explain to her what happened, and I had to make a phone call to my parents to tell them what happened. My father took everything that needed to be done and took care of it for me, while my daughter, who was 2.5 years old at the time, was in the car, was life-flighted to Geisinger. I spent 4 days in the hospital with my daughter, smelling like crap because I was playing in a softball tournament. But my father took care of everything, absolutely everything. That was the kind of father that my father was. He really took care of everything for us. My father always told me that I had the perfect voice for radio. It sounded just like my mother. He constantly reminded me of that. There's some people that we should mention. Robert L. Wilson from WKVA Radio. I'm sure there's quite a few people here that remember that name. But Robert L. Wilson was the guy that pretty much gave my dad an opportunity here in Lewistown to be in radio. He's the reason I got in radio, and I know a lot of people say it was my father's fault that I got into radio, but I loved it. I used to go to the Lewistown gym and watch him perched on the top row of the bleachers, getting ready to do a game, and I'd be like 9 or 10 years old and watching him do the games and just being amazed at how much fun and joy he had in doing that type of thing. It was just phenomenal. And I said, that's got to be a half-decent job. So I said, why not? I'll try it. And as Steve said, 40 years later, I was doing Penn State women's basketball, and I loved it. I absolutely adored it. The association with the student athlete is something that is hard to explain, but I know my father loved the association with the student athlete and getting to know them. Tim mentioned TV quarterbacks, that Dad would sit with 2 players every TV quarterback show and simply talk to them about school, about where they're from, about what they did, where they partied the night before, things like that. But my dad just loved the student athletes. He would get a little excited at times whenever he was broadcasting. And I don't know if this actually ever happened, but I've heard this from several other people. There was a time when he was doing a game when there was a Penn State ball carrier was carrying the ball, and he was going, he's at the 40, the 40, the 50, the 55, which we all know there's no 55-yard line. But he put it in there a little bit. I just found out that Ron Freed, is that right? Is Ron? He's the man who had the assist for Jim Argard's half-court shot. So Ron, he's not, is he here? No. He's not here. So nobody remembers the guy that made the assist, but that was Dad's first real scream fest that he did whenever that ball went in. I wish we had the audio for it, because that would be classic. Another one of his famous squeals was when Herb Benhart kicked a 54-yard field goal in the 1974 NC State game. And of course, the ever-popular and always memorable 82 Sugar Bowl, 3-2-1 Penn State's national champions. Everybody remembers things like that, and that's what makes my dad the man he is. And we just love him to death, and as Tim said, we miss him. We miss him very, very, very much. Congratulations to all the honorees tonight. You're well-deserved. And congratulations to the committee. John, you guys did a phenomenal job. I know it was a tough one, but thank you very much for everything. That's it. Thank you.
Very well, we're going to talk some baseball next, all right? You ready over there? Next, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tim Thompson.
Almost every athlete's career is characterized by statistics, and that is certainly the case with Charles Tim Thompson, whose connection with professional baseball spanned 15 years as a player, and then as a baseball scout for nearly another 4 decades. His professional years started in 1947 when he was signed by the Brooklyn Dodgers following a tryout camp. His 14 minor league seasons totaled nearly 1,500 games and more than 4,600 plate appearances. With nearly 1,400 base hits, his season batting average was often near or above 300. It was no ordinary time in 1954 when he got his call to join the major leagues. His Brooklyn teammates that year became known as the Boys of Summer, including Hall of Famers Roy Campanella, Pee Wee Reese, Duke Snyder, Gil Hodges, and Jackie Roosevelt Robinson. In the majors, Thompson added another 123 hits to his totals, batting a respectable .238 in the big leagues over 4 seasons. Used mostly as a catcher, he played for Brooklyn, the Kansas City Athletics, and Detroit Tigers. He culminated his playing days in 1962 as a player-manager for the AAA affiliate Toronto Maple Leafs in the International League. The Coalport, Pennsylvania native carried his love for the game forward after his playing days. In 1963, the legendary Tommy Lasorda convinced him to become a scout, seeking out future talent for the Los Angeles Dodgers, St. Louis Cardinals, and Baltimore Orioles for the next 35 years. It's with great pleasure that the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame inducts Tim Thompson.
We had hoped that Tim would be with us tonight. Unfortunately, Tim is in the hospital right now, and his good days has bad days, and we were hoping this would be a good one, but unfortunately, Tim cannot be with us here tonight. Also, we had Ben McClure, who was going to come and speak on behalf of Tim and do the official induction, and unfortunately, he also cannot be with us tonight. We do have 2 members of the family, though, that were gracious enough to come last minute notice. They were going to be here anyway, and so they've agreed to come up, accept the award on his behalf, and say a few words. So
From the family, would you please welcome Kim Norton and Matt North.
Talk about short notice, right? Yeah, you don't Google baseball in Mifflin County, you just call Ray Wild, right? So thankful for Ray Wild and all his baseball diligence. I know anybody that had a kid that's played in Mifflin County always woke up the day after the game to read Ray's article, because Ray always did his best to tell you how the game went and to make sure that your kids made the paper. And we're very thankful for Ray. Thanks, Ray. And we are very thankful that our grandfather, my grandfather, I speak as he is my grandfather. I had the privilege to marry a granddaughter who he raised and spend the last 30 years getting to know Mr. Tim Thompson. And I can tell you that up until about 7 or 8 years ago, I didn't even know the man had 4 World Series rings. 2 as a player and 2 as a coach. That's the kind of man Tim Thompson is. Very humble, family man who, somebody alluded to the word God, and I'm going to go there. God teaches us that we're to die to self and live for other people. That's who Tim Thompson was. So, in honor of Tim Thompson not being able to be here, I can tell you from the family, Tim is very appreciative of this. He was looking forward to being here. He's 97 years old, strong. We hope we get him back soon, and we thank you guys very much for recognizing Tim and his stats, and we just ask that you lift him up in your prayers. Thank you very much.
And our final individual inductee of the evening. We good over there, Doug? When you talk of football, there's only one name in this area, Mr. Alex Eufema. The golden age of football for Lewistown High School can be attributed to one man, Alex Eufema. When he accepted the head coaching role in 1946, Eufema was given 3 years to turn the Panthers into winners. Year 1 was more of the same, losing. Then a tie in year 2, before finally a winner in the 3rd year. That was just the beginning, because from 1946 to 1963, Eufema led Lewistown to a combined record of 121 wins, 51 losses, and 6 ties. The finest seasons came from 56 to 59, where they went 36-3, and a perfect 9-0 in 1957, when the team allowed just 13 points to their opponents the entire season. The players are not to be overlooked during this run. The 1958 squad scored an amazing 455 points in 10 games. 7 players received full scholarships from that team: Ralph Baker, Harold Jr. Powell, Jack Cedar, Harry Sprout, William Swineford, Fred Stoichik, and Jack Henderson. Football wasn't Eufema's only success. He also coached the Panthers basketball team to consecutive Mountain League titles in 54 and 55, going undefeated in 55. With previous football coaching stints at Beaver Falls and Bentleyville added to his totals here at Lewistown, Alex was voted into the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame in 1989 with a career record of 274 wins and 96 losses. As one more honor, tonight the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame enshrines Alex Eufema. And at this time, we have members of the Eufema family. Would you please come forward to accept this award on Alex's behalf?
would be very proud of standing in front of a lot of accomplished people. In this case, similar to a lot of the other stories that have been talked about today, talk more about the man and not necessarily the coach, because his legacy was more and about what he instilled, confidence in people. But I just funny side note to the 3 years and done. He actually was told he would be fired in 3 years if he did not win, if we did not beat Huntington. So you would think that stuff in the 40s would happen, like maybe in Texas or some of these other in a modern age, but that was the rule. Teaching job, everything. Go back to where you came from. So, which was actually Beaver Falls. He started there, and in Beaver Falls he oddly coached. It's funny how all the worlds collide. Joe Namath was his quarterback as a 7th grader, was the starting quarterback for Beaver Falls. So funny how success breeds itself. But I won't take up a lot of your time. My grandfather was an exceptional person. Very, I don't know, show of hands, who actually had him in school in this room? Yes, boys. Yes, Tim. Absolutely. Yeah, Joel and Tim tell some good stories about all this stuff, but he was a guy that when he walked into the room, he had a Bear Bryant kind of magnetism. You just stopped doing whatever it is you were doing. If you were a little horseplay, as they would say, everyone just stopped. He stopped in their tracks. When he walked in the room, he had that kind of effect on people. And but honestly, with Junior Powell and Ralph Baker, and when you look back on this, he was successful because he had talent, he had community support, and he was also allowed to show a little discipline. And I'm not here to suggest whether or not that's good or bad. A lot of coaches take it too far, but sometimes you need someone to grab you by the face mask. And sometimes I think that is sorely missing in this environment, but also that tough love. Pull you in, tell you what you've done wrong, but why did you do it? What can we do about it next time? So I just appreciate all of you being here. Obviously, the Euphema legacy, in one way or the other, we try to keep this community going, one way or the other, and we appreciate the combined support, but also let's try to bring that community pride back into all of our young people, trying to make a difference athletically, scholastically, and together as a community with that tough love, we can make it. So appreciate it.
Okay, our final event of the evening, selecting a team to be enshrined. I'm sure it was no easy task. And this is actually a combined honor here between two back-to-back seasons that I think many of us will never forget. Our first teams being inducted. Good over there. The Lewistown girls, 97 and 98.
It was a phenomenal 2 consecutive years for the Lewistown girls basketball team. Under head coach Kevin Kodish, a remarkable record of 32-0 in the 1996-97 season, followed with a 31-1 season in 97-98, leading to back-to-back PIAA Pennsylvania AAA basketball championships. And now for the first ever team selected to the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame, the girls of Lewistown state basketball titles, 97 and 98.
Stop, 'cause those years
have some of the girls here. We wish we could have had them all, but getting them all together was obviously quite a challenging task. But we do have the mastermind behind it all, and a guy that still to this day, I don't think gets enough credit for what he did with those kids. The coach, commish, Mr. Kevin Kodish. Come on up here.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, everyone. I wrote out my comments tonight because I feel I didn't want to miss anybody, and I figured if I tried to wing it, I'd forget 3 dozen people. So I want to make sure that I cover everything I want to cover. First, obviously, I want to thank the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame for recognizing our state championship teams. It's a tremendous honor and great that they're the first teams in. The 96, 97, 97, 98 girls basketball teams were magical, full of hard work, thrilling games, most of all fun. The runs to state championships were pressure-filled for the girls, but their dedication to the fundamentals of the game, their strong desire for excellence, and their unwavering commitment to each other, their school, and their community carried them to the top of the mountain for 2 consecutive years. The first season, we beat the odds to go a perfect 32-0, coming from behind with big fourth-quarter rallies in both the district championship game and the Western Finals against Blackhawk. The following season saw us go a superb 31-1 on the way to the second title. Our only setback that season was a December game at Bishop Guilfoyle, 63-61. I still remember us pushing the ball up the floor to win the game when the official called one of our guards for stepping out of bounds. From my view, she was at least 2 feet from the line. I threw the challenge flag. The replay official was the Bishop Guilfoyle principal, and the rule report stood. That was the only blemish in 2 seasons, so I guess I can't complain about that. I'll never forget the tremendous support our team received from the Mifflin County community. When we left town for a playoff game, there were always signs, balloons along the route of the area. When we left Lewistown for the state title games, people had bed sheets hanging from the second floor of their homes, saying things like, "Go Lady Panthers, bring home the gold." Before we crossed the county line, a policeman stood outside his patrol car at attention and gave us a salute. Looking back, the Lady Panthers fans were second to none. No matter the location, our fans packed the gym, were incredibly loud, and made our girls feel at home. What was especially nice about both of our playoff runs was that every player contributed in their own way. Everyone knew their role, and they pulled together for the good of the team. Our 3-star guards, Krista Gingrich, Maggie Johnson, and Jenna Feathers, paced us in scoring, and each of them took turns sparking us on big scoring runs during the games. Opponents couldn't concentrate on one player. They were all such special players and people. These 2 teams also featured defensive standouts like Sweeta Hutchinson and Heather McElwain, tremendous rebounders like Enid Dunbar, Nikki Snyder, Annie Zampelli, Hillary Worley, and Melissa Merrill. No championship team can reach its true potential without a committed and driven supporting cast of players. Players that don't always get a lot of playing time in games, but provide critical energy and competition each and every day at practice. When thinking of those key supporting cast players, I remember players like Mackenzie Moser, Kim Maxwell, Jada Purcell, Gina Socio, Ashley Meyer, Katie and Jesse Ware, Heather Wheeler, Erin Sear, Haley Knable, Becca Getz, and Kelly Altieri. Those players earned the respect of their teammates through the way they practiced and pushed the starters and key reserves. I was very fortunate to have high-quality, dedicated assistant coaches in both state title seasons. Charlie Funk and Ron Mills were super assistants, and Jim Fosselman supported us as a scorer. Coach Funk also served as the junior high coach, played back in the fall during those days, so he coached the players at that point in time on their journey to high school. It's certainly important for me to note, in the seasons prior to the state championships, people like Dick and Aaron Gingrich, as well as Steve Feathers, provided great instruction and guidance to the girls. Dick started taking the girls to the Jewish Memorial Center in Altoona in 5th or 6th grade, and rivalries of school like Central and Tyrone were born early. Aaron was a full-time volunteer assistant in the 2 years prior to the state titles before leaving to pursue his law school degree. Steve Feathers spent many a day and evening on the blacktop in the Big Town playground, helping players to hone their skills. I'm glad Steve's here tonight too. The media, especially our local radio stations and the Sentinel, were incredible in their coverage, and who can forget the great videos the games created by the Zampelli Electronics and Nittany Media crews. People like Joe Zampelli and Hank Hayne made sure everyone had an opportunity to see the replays of the games on television. None of us will ever forget Roger Herco, WCHX, excitedly saying, "She buries it," after a big three-pointer. Another memory that stands out was the willingness of WPSX TV to help us out for the telecast of the title games. These games were prior to the days of PCN, telecasting all the state final games. The Harrisburg PBS affiliate produced the games, but we needed WPSX to step up and pick up the game feed so people in Lewistown and Mifflin County could see the games live. I believe it was a mutually beneficial relationship, however, as I remember a younger Steve Jones being a WPSX studio host during the games, encouraging people to call in and pledge monetary support for public television. Your support helps us bring great programming like this to you, was a common theme for the night. I believe the WPSX phones were ringing all night. I also have to mention the great support and work of our Panther Club, the great backing of Principal Ed Curry, the awesome job by trainer Danielle Hahn, and our athletic director extraordinaire, Jonah Williams. I'll never forget the night we won our Western Final against Blackhawk. In the middle of the celebration, Tona mentioned we needed to do the state finals tickets for the parents of the players. I asked when, and she said, "Tonight." Indeed, the turnaround time between the games was short, and the limited public sale tickets had to be set up. Tona and her husband Chris came to my house that Wednesday night, and I think we were at it until about 3:30 a.m. figuring everything out. Finally, I want to thank my family for support. My mother was the #1 Lady Panther fan in my mind. My wonderful wife Shelley and daughters Katie and Brooke were always there supporting me and the team every step of the way. It was so wonderful to have their love behind me. I guess I rambled long enough. Thanks again to MC Hall of Fame for this great honor. The Lady Panthers will always be #1 to me. Thank you again. We have some plaques we're going to present to the members who were able to make it here tonight. You know, majority of our players live out of state now, so it was tough, you know, with a couple months' notice to able to get someone to come. And I'm glad that some of them were able to make, including Heather McElwain. I want to acknowledge her especially. She lives just north of Dallas, Texas, and she came just for this tonight. All right, we'll start with two players that were just on the 96-97 undefeated team. Enid Dunmeyer. And Mackenzie Moser. Now, players just from the 1997-98 team. Aaron Sear. And Kelly Altieri. Okay, now on to the players who are on both teams. Kimberly Maxwell. Heather McElwain. Hillary Worley. Accepting for their late daughter, Jenna Stephen Sue Feathers. Our scorekeeper, Jim Fosselman. Assistant coach, Ron Mills. And I guess I'm the last one out here.
I congratulate all of our recipients tonight. Just thinking, flashing back in time here, and I remember preseason article in the Sentinel, the year that the Lewistown girls first won it all. There was a question asked of Kevin, typical question to start the season, and the question was, what are your team's weaknesses? I vividly remember this. Kevin's answer was, we don't have any. I think he was right about that too, by the way. We're done with the evening. We want to thank you all for coming. We do some final words. I'm going to ask John, are we going to come back up here, Chief, one more time?
It'll be short.
It'll be short. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much for being here one final time. Our president, Mr. John Zimmerman.
Not going to win any high jump championships anymore. Just one thing that Ralph was saying, it made me think of this story. And I might have these facts wrong, but what the hell. When you guys, Junior, and you guys lost to Hawk Haven, it was over at Hawk Haven?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't part of it.
Oh, you weren't part of it? But my dad took me over to I was in 9th grade, I think, and Joe Simon took me over to the game, and we stopped at the Utah house. This is my story, I don't know. And you guys had an after the game dinner there, and I saw guys fighting back tears and showing all kinds of emotion. And I said to my dad, what is that all about? He says, you don't get it? He says, until you learn how much you have to care, you'll never be a winner. Learn from what you see. Honest to God, I'm not making that up. This is a true thing. That wherever it was, you had dinner. But anyway, this is a hell of a night, wasn't it? Fantastic. You read about Center County and Altoona getting $20,000 in sheets to put on this and bring in a speaker or whomever, but we did pretty damn good. And Steve Jones, thank you so much. You were a big time at the show. Thank you. Roger, thank you. So, thank you everybody. The important thing is we need members. So if you are a member, re-up your membership and get somebody else. We can't exist without it. We don't have it. We have a few corporate sponsors, but we don't have the good fortune of having sheets and places like that can really help you. So we need you to do it. So we need members. And thank you so much for all of you being here. Cheers.